Good morning, y'all, or whatever time it is for you. What's up? I am so excited that you're here, and it's gonna be a great day. We're talking about some great stuff today, mostly about the shame stigma, which I think comes in a couple of different varieties, and not comfortably so. Because, stigmas are typically something that people stay away from. It's kind of, I feel like a stigma, like a social stigma, is kind of like the same as a taboo. Does that make sense? Is that like, maybe I need to like look at the dictionary definitions and kind of like get a read on just how close they are, because it definitely feels like we've made stigmas about subjects that we've deemed to be taboo. There it is. And what that really creates is not only an environment where people feel the need to be in denial or to deny something because of a stigma and because it's not something socially seen as acceptable to talk about or to even have. It's kind of just like a plague, or like what is it called? Like a leprosy, where we just kind of like, if somebody is a part of like a shame stigma, like a very specific shame stigma, we just send them to one specific shame island and we just kind of like let them rot there and let them think that they're by themselves. And often when you send enough people there, they all start to group around and go, hey, they sent you away too? Like, hey, you're here too? Okay, cool. Well, then I guess I'm not the only one who's like this. I guess I'm not the only one with this issue. And there really isn't anything to be embarrassed about. It's just that there are all of these social cues that have told other people to act this way toward me, or about a subject that is near and dear to me, or make any kind of other assumption that they're not in the room with someone who could possibly be related to something so shameful. So here we go. We're not even 3 minutes in yet, and we have gone all the way. We've spiraled all the way down the shame spiral, from friggin' denial and embarrassment, and man, it's very much like a grieving process, where when you realize that you're being stigmatized for a social setting that you didn't turn on, it's kind of like everybody's got the same shit on their iPhones, like everybody's got the same what is it called when it like autocorrect? Because I don't use it. I turned it off. That was a setting that I turned off. But it's kind of like everybody uses autocorrect, and you're one of those people who doesn't use autocorrect, and everybody's like, you turned off that setting? And you're like, I don't feel like I need to explain this to you, but yeah, I did turn off that setting. That's just how I am. That's just part of how I am. Now this I'm talking about referring to an actual choice that you can make that doesn't have anything to do with your personal identity. Although some people are like, I'm a floor sitter. I mean, I say, I'm a floor sitter. I feel like that's kind of like part of my identity in a way. But it's not necessarily something that I would stand up and protest about, because my rights as a floor sitter aren't being encroached upon. So it's not the same thing as flipping a setting. It's not the same thing. But I just figure I like using metaphor because it's a visual way for everybody to relate and to like imagine the story in their mind and put themselves in this setting where they could understand that concept And so as it translates to the real concept, the actual stigma of having an STD or an STI, being STI or STD positive, being positive, the social stigma of being more feminine than you're allowed, or having more feminine traits, socially acceptable levels of feminine traits, or what have you. And I could go on. I could make this into racial stigmas. I could make this into gender and sexual identity, preference stigmas. You know, I don't know how I identify as a person in the semi-queer, mostly heteronormative portion of the spectrum. So I kind of like refrain. I refrain from... I refrain. Not only because the stigma of being considered bisexual or queer is still incredibly new for all of society, but because they're not terms that I'm like, I really latch onto. So it's also just a matter of like figuring out which stigma you're stuck with as you start to learn more about yourself, about your true self. And something that I learned about my true self is that I am a social person. I am not easily embarrassed. I actually like to use my own humility, and I definitely am like a self-effacing joke kind of person. Like I will definitely be beyond truthful. Kind of like to the like I get a lot of TMIs. Like a lot of people are very like, that's too much, Kelly. You could have just stopped it like 20 minutes ago. And I'm like, that's who I am. But for me, that's how I am. I'm a social person. I want to share things. I don't feel embarrassment. And when you can make me feel so ashamed and embarrassed about something that I go into denial about it, me as a person, like personally me, as a not embarrassed, hardly ever person. You see how many chins are coming out? All these chins are here to tell you the truth. And the truth is, that was fucking ridiculous. That was a really ridiculous experience that I did not need to have. It wasn't a necessary experience by any means for anyone to feel like I can't ask questions about this topic, and I couldn't ask questions about this topic because I wouldn't get straight answers, or because I felt the stigma of expressing that you don't know everything, because I was a smart kid, and being labeled as a smart kid as opposed to a capable and a resourceful kid, a creative kid, made me feel like if I didn't know an answer, then I needed to stay silent. Like I needed to stay mute. And when I was younger, that wasn't a problem, because literally anybody else could give the answer. And I'm like, I don't have to be the one raising my hand, 5 out of 5 times a day. But for the things that I didn't know, I was very much like, whoa, I am not going to even try. Like, I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to try to solve something when I'm not already sure that I know the answer. You know how many kids feel the same exact way now that I felt then? I'm sorry, I just cracked my toe knuckles, so sorry if you heard the little... There are a lot of kids who still feel like they are the grades that they get. They are the adjectives that people place on them. They are the room and the area of the room that they are seated in, that are selected for them. So if they have to go to like a bad kid's room, then they are a bad kid because they went into the room, right? Then they're a bad kid. If they have to sit at the dumb kids table or the low level table, then they are low level, right? Then they're a dumb kid because they sat at the dumb kids table. That's just who they are now. That's part of their social equity. That's what they've got to provide for the rest of society, is they are the dumb one. They are the ones who sit at the dumb table. And they are the ones who sit at the dumb. So, as somebody who grew up being afraid to admit that there are things that I don't know, that I'm not smart about, and also combined with the fact that sexual health was the thing that I knew the least amount of anything about, I refused to learn anything about it at that point. And once I was told that I had herpes, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna go and throw my head in the sand as deep as it'll go now, because I don't like not knowing things. I have this fear that if I admit to anybody that I don't know certain things, that I will be seen as stupid and I will be the dumb kid. I definitely felt like the dumb kid I felt like the smart kid compared to my class and the dumb kid compared to my sister, because she was always studying and she would get really good grades because she would actually study. She would like actually care about the material. Whereas I would walk in and I would just kind of like wing a test and keep mostly good grades. Unless it was a subject where, like I said, I knew that I knew nothing, so I said nothing and I learned nothing. I felt like I wasn't the smart kid at home. I felt like my grades determined a lot of my value. And it wasn't really until I got to college and I got to choose my own classes and choose what I learned that I cared about the material, and I realized there's a lot that a lot of people don't know. There's a lot that I don't know that I want to know, and there's a lot that a lot of people don't know. So it's okay not to know. It's okay to be knowledgeless or ignorant about certain topics, because you can't know everything about everything. And the moment that you stop asking questions because you feel like you've already gotten the answer is the moment that you stop learning, you stop growing, and you actually allow your ability to achieve to shrink. So it's been that kind of week for me where I feel like this stigma really weighs on me. And so if you subscribe to my Patreon, I'm going to continue this conversation with myself, with you, because I really would like to hear from you. But I'm going to end it here for all of my YouTube babes, and just wish you all of the love that you fucking deserve and that you're worth, because it's a very stigmatized world out there, and society isn't going to change until we're the ones who change. So thank you so much for watching. Please go over to my Patreon and subscribe to the Patreon in the way that you subscribe to Patreon, so that you can get my cool rewards. You can get How to Defeat Donald Trump, which is basically like a self-love, self-health, wealth manifesto. And you can also get the elongated versions of these videos if you like the way that I talk, you like the way that I explain things, and you want to have a conversation with me because you want to share what you have going on in your life and your perspective on things. I am always looking for other perspectives, because something that my parents taught me is that the truth has 3 sides: your side, my side, and the truth. So I would like to get everybody's sides so I can start to see the truth more clearly and more clearly every time that I have this conversation. Again, thank you so much, best friend. I will see you later. And for my Patreon folk, let's get cracking.